Well, welcome to episode 3 of Faith, Life, and the Future of All Saints. We are happy to have with us today 3 members of council, Ryan Long, Julie Claus, and Beth Patton. We are delighted to have them participating in a discussion about an initiative that the ELCA came up with in the past year titled Future Directions. And it's an initiative to kind of look at the future of the ELCA and how churches can continue to be thriving, welcoming, inclusive communities. And so I thought I would begin, just to kind of keep us all in the know and on the same page, with stating some of the goals that the ELCA has laid out toward future direction. So goal 1 would be to be a thriving church that spreads the gospel and deepens faith for all people. Goal 2 is to be a church that equips people to live out their own baptismal vocation. Goal 3 is to be an inviting and inclusive and welcoming church that embraces the diversity of the communities that they are located in. Goal 4 is to be a visible church, deeply committed to working ecumenically and with people of other faiths. And goal 5 is to be a well-governed, connected, and sustainable church. And so with that, I thought we'd dive in and talk about not only the future of All Saints, but the future of the ELCA in general. As we know, in almost every synod of the ELCA across the U.S., we find congregations closing, and we find very few opening. And so what does it mean for the ELCA or any given church to thrive? What does it mean to thrive? And how does All Saints, or any congregation, how do they thrive?
I would say, for me, a thriving church, and it's not so much that it has to be overflowing with people, so I'm not talking it has to be packed at the gills, but just that you see that there's something for everyone to do, that there's some kind of a program or an activity within the church, or it's an activity of the church that's outside of that physical building, that they feel that they have and they do. And we've talked about it's a way to live out their faith. Yeah. And so to me, that's what a thriving church is that you have your whole congregation, all your membership is involved with something with the church.
So when we say like welcoming for all, that there has to be a place and a way for all people to plug in. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
And I'll add on to what Julie's saying. I think that All Saints has done a great job growing our youth program. And then we had the college trip. I know it was canceled due to COVID, but I think having everything for all the generations to participate in, and then cross-generational, it's been fun to see those things happen too. I think that's a sign.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I would agree. There's a great connection at All Saints, from VBS all the way to the So-So Saints. Yeah. Right? There's something for everybody.
Yeah, my youngest, Adeline, who's 5, I would have thought in a pandemic, she would be left out a little bit, But how can All Saints meet all the needs of all ages in a pandemic? But Lisa and Rochelle kept planning those PB and Jam events, and they would have those monthly. And so, from preschool all the way to those 65, 85, 95 and older, we kept having activities even in the pandemic. So I think we did really well with that. Okay, well let's talk about maybe the goal 2, baptismal vocations, living out one's faith in the world. How well does All Saints equip its members to live out their faith in everyday life?
I think there's a wealth of opportunities to serve at All Saints. Whether it's down in Ironton, whether it's here locally, there's a regular opportunity to serve the community.
And I think what also really helps is that it's really hard sometimes for somebody to step out of your box. I mean, we are Lutherans, so that's just what it is. That's just what we are. are. And so it's always hard for us to step up. And I'm one of those people. But Ruth has so many other things too, where it's like a stepping stone. And so you can do something, maybe it's just as simple as bringing food, or it was really eye-opening for me. It was really great the first time I came and served at one of the welcome tables, because that was another little bit more stepping out of my box. I mean, I'd been to Lutheran Social Services, but serving people directly was even a little bit, that was a new thing for me.
And then eating with those people
Yes.
too, not only serving, but sitting down, getting to know people from outside of this community.
Right, and for me, it was in the safety of here at All Saints.
Right.
So I had that comfort level. And so now, hopefully, once COVID is over, now I'm ready to take that next step of, it doesn't have to be, I can go someplace else and help with that. So I think that's one thing with All Saints is you have your stuff, so we can do our baby steps.
Yeah, we have those opportunities to slowly get out of our shells and expand our faith.
Right, I agree. Starting with that service is always an easy one, I think, for me to point to. But even some of the Bible studies that are now online, or some of the books that we have with our Lenten or Advent services, it's sometimes there's a topic in there that I can share with someone at work, or it's or say, well, we're doing this, and it's an easy way to open up and have a conversation.
Yeah, we always hope that we offer those segues, if you will, those ways of saying, hey, I'm reading this book at church, and if you want to borrow it, I found it helpful. Yeah, and sometimes that thinking about evangelism in that way can be, I think, very intimidating. But if you have something like a book that you can share, or a YouTube link, hey, the choir had this wonderful song, would you like, can I email it to you? I think those are always those kind of faith segues that we need to take faith out of this place and into the working world and into the lives that we live. So part of the goal of the ELCA is to become more diverse. Studies have shown that the ELCA is the widest denomination of all mainline Protestant denominations. We have very little diversity. Though we've made headway on that, we feel that, I think the ELCA kind of looks at the statistics of the United States and they think, why don't we reflect that better? And in thinking that way, I'd like to ask you all too, how can All Saints better reflect the communities that we're located in? We're located here in Worthington specifically, but membership comes from Lewis Center and Powell and Clintonville and Dublin and Worthington and beyond Columbus. So what are some of those maybe tough steps that we need to take to be able to better reflect the diversity of the communities? And that's a tough one.
Yeah.
So a pause is okay. Don't worry about that. I've just given you it's a goal that the ELCA doesn't even quite know how to tackle. They've set up multiple committees to look at how do we invite people of different ethnic backgrounds and races into this body that we call the ELCA, and it's tough to do. So whether it's because of maybe worship styles or a German, Swedish heritage, I mean, there are all these things that I think factor into it, but certainly and how do we, as All Saints, even begin to tackle such a difficult task?
It's challenging for sure. I think through events, potentially, if we have outreach and better publicize the events that we host, that could potentially help.
Yeah.
We had a lot of folks stop out front during when we had the pumpkin patch this fall. So I spoke with several folks out there that would consider coming to All Saints. So there's opportunities like that around. We just need to take advantage of them, I think.
So visibility.
That's a big part.
Big part of it.
Yeah.
Not being, the church that people pass by on 23, but they have no idea what happens on the inside of it.
I always go back to a statement that I saw in Ignite Faith, which was reimagine ministry to grow in faith. And I think for me, when I read that, I'm like, I mean, I kind of did the eye roll, I'll be honest. But I think about that, and maybe it's just reimagining, to what Ryan says, how do we target more, the diversity? How do we target our activities, our outreach, our service, so that we are trying to reach or maybe go to locations that we are not used to do. And maybe those are some ideas, but it is a tough one to think about. It really does get out of your comfort zone.
And I think the end goal, I ought to add, shouldn't be to add members to the pews. I mean, ultimately we would love that, but the goal ought to be, again, to get out of our comfort zones and to meet people that we wouldn't normally interact with. And even if it means being a partner with a congregation of a different faith or a different denomination, just something to get out of those silos that we build. So, do you have anything to add?
No, but actually, no, because I didn't have anything to add what they said, but I was going to say what you just said about partnering and everything, and not being that we're trying to get people in our pews. I really like that. I think that really helps me because I really struggle with that. Because at church, so many of the times it's that community, and you start going out forwards, and so. But when somebody starts trying to drive 20 miles, I mean, that's a tough one for me to grapple with.
Right.
But I really like the idea of partnering. To me, that I can see that as a reality and not a dream.
I've always viewed being Lutheran as like you like a specific kind of coffee or tea, and a lot of people love tea, but maybe not the kind of tea that I like, and so being Lutheran is its own flavor of being Christian in the world, and I don't think the goal should be to convince everyone to like that tea that I like, but rather to find out, what kind of tea they like, and to have a tea party together, whatever the metaphor becomes. How can we work together and respect one another? But again, I think the dilemma is when we don't get out there to find out what kind of tea people like, or what they're doing in the world to help further the kingdom of God. And we always need to work on that. So most of us know people who attend maybe a non-denominational or a really active, thriving church. And I think of All Saints as thriving, but maybe not thriving in the way that St. Michael's Catholic in Powell is thriving, or Worthington Christian is thriving. Do you ever feel like what do we need to do to be thriving like that? Do you ever feel that All Saints maybe needs to make an adjustment or make a change to be kind of bursting at the seams, so to speak?
I don't know if I feel like we need to make a change. There may be a change to help bring more people in. I think what I struggle with is the ones that I know that go to a non-denominational church such as that, there's just really not much theology. I mean, it's more, it's the personality of the pastor or the leadership that has drawn them to that, which, nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's always really helpful because you want to enjoy who you're going to listen to, but there's no Sunday school. They have their small groups, so they do have that connection, and they make sure that their small groups are well matched, and for whatever personalities, age-wise, are they young parents? But I think that's the thing, is that there's somebody that's up there and they speak on the scripture. That's what I struggle with, to say, making that, because there's all the theology that I feel is so important. I mean, because I was raised with it, I guess that's what I struggle with that, with how to.
Yeah. I've struggled with that too, when you don't see any sacramental focus, and it maybe feels like the Bible passages being spoken about and preached about seem to be kind of cherry-picked, as to what the pastor is, wants to focus on, instead of following a similar lectionary that all Lutherans or all Methodists seem to be following. I struggle with that too.
It would be nice to have some more folks coming, for sure.
Yeah.
I used to attend a small Lutheran church in California, and we'd drive past a non-denominational church on the way there, and they had to bring the CHP out to let people in and out of the parking lot. It was crazy.
Yeah.
There were thousands of people going to that church.
Yeah.
And so, and the Lutheran church was great. It was small, but
Right.
it was a strong congregation, but it was a big difference, just half a mile down the road
Yeah.
from the other one.
Yeah. And so I think we're all guilty of that, playing that comparison game of like, okay, well, should that be the goal? Should we have to have parking lot attendance because we don't have enough parking spots and all that, that kind of thing. But I'm becoming convinced that shouldn't be the goal, that numbers shouldn't be the ultimate goal. But to your point, Ryan, it'd be nice to see more and more people coming on a weekly and monthly basis. But ultimately, I think it's about, for me, theology is key. What do we say and believe about God? And how do we reflect that out in the world? That to me is critical and paramount. But, never to lose sight of how do we invite more and more people in. So goal 4 deals with what we call ecumenism, which is how do we partner with other denominations, be it Presbyterian, Methodist, Catholic, whomever, and also other people of faith. How can we, not only within the ELCA, but as All Saints, how can we be that good partner in the community? The people of different denominations, different faiths, if we all have the same goal of working for good and justice and peace in the community, to live out our faith and not just be people who come and sing hymns on Sunday, if we do want to be out in the community, how do we, the goal would be to partner with other people. What are some steps we can do to get there?
Again, I almost think it has to be baby steps, or at least for me, because it really does get outside of what I come here because I like to worship in a certain way. So it's a little bit of education, maybe, of understanding some of the others, and then starting small, and small steps, and then maybe doing something on a larger level.
Well put.
Yeah, it might even be looking like the tools for schools going down to Ironton. We're still with another Lutheran church, but maybe there's another area in Columbus that we partner with a non-Lutheran church or a group to help and start doing an outreach. So it's finding that common project or activity to do to reach out to that community.
More of a common purpose than Lutheran or Presbyterian or something like that.
You're still trying to help the community, but it doesn't matter if you're Lutheran or Methodist or Baptist. We'd have that common goal, and then maybe that would help with people talking and getting to know each other.
Yeah. When I was in seminary, one of the most helpful classes I took was called Being in the City for Good. And part of the goal of that class was that we went to a couple Muslim synagogues, and we went to a Somali market on Morse, and it was very helpful to think of not only the diversity of the people in Columbus, but how to get to know them. All these people that live among us, and places that I drive by, but places that I would have never felt. Never would have thought to enter. And I do think part of being a faithful follower of Jesus is not only about, how often do I attend church, but how can I get to know more of God's people in the city that I live in. And it is kind of a baby step. It has to be sometimes baby steps because it can all be daunting. How to get out of my own comfort zone can be daunting. So I also wanted to ask specifically, what are your hopes for All Saints over the next 5 to 10 years? How do you see All Saints continuing to kind of embody some of these goals that the ELCA has set out, but how do you see us continuing to thrive, both in terms of diversity, in terms of community connectedness, and so on? What would a thriving All Saints continue to look like for you all?
The connection to the youth is critical. All Saints has done a really nice job connecting with the youth from the time they're in Sunday school all the way to the time they're in college. So I think that's a critical element as we move ahead, that they're continuing to be focused for the church.
Not overlooking that segment, especially because of maybe how old they are, the assumptions we put on them and what they can or can't do.
They are the future of All Saints, I think, and just like all the technology advances we've made, again, I thought, would I ever really use this? But I love being able to maybe flip on the Bible studies that I have not attended in the past, but it's easy enough to watch. So I think embracing their ideas, because the next generation will have great ideas too. So that'll be thriving if we continue to listen.
Yeah.
And I think even from the education standpoint, I mean, right, we've got a lot more Bible studies that are available, but I think the 21-day challenge, doing anything with helping from an education standpoint for at all ages and levels in the church, is to keep bringing that up to everybody and letting it be conversation between small groups, because that's where people feel comfortable instead of, it's not something for you guys to do in the pulpit on Sunday. I mean, it's to bring that up and to encourage that, but it's really in the small groups, and I think that's part of the thing that I see coming up is, I think, for making and thriving, is that if we can develop more of those small group feelings for people.
Yeah, because some people I think come in here and they want anonymity. They don't want to get all that involved. And there always is going to be that hurdle of how do we plug people in with one another? How do we get to know people that we don't know? Again, it's a lot. I keep coming back to that idea of a comfort zone. How do we get out of our comfort zone so that we know the people in that back pew that we've never talked to? And certainly small groups go a long way to that. So, yeah. Well, any final thoughts that you all have just about All Saints, its role in the ELCA, and the future directions of the ELCA? Well, I thank you all. I thank you for dialoguing and being so open and vulnerable today, and having the role that you do on council and leading us at All Saints. Thank you.